Okay, so now the boost pads are visible, but they're not really like taking over the level. The other thing is, for some reason, these boost pads appear to be over player. I'm not quite sure why that is. The index. We want like a negative 100 perhaps, and okay, so I think what we need, sweet, that feels better. So we need to have a little bit more linear dampening on the player, and maybe a little bit more initial acceleration, just to make it easier to control, because that was some of the feedback we got. So okay, so we can open the player, and we're probably better to do this. Well, okay, we can do the linear velocity, the linear dampening here. Okay, so we've got no linear dampening. So we can't do it here. We're actually doing it all in code. So create a new desktop here and bring this across. Okay, so this is our player.gd, and all of our constants are sort of up here at the top. So I think some of these are need to be changed. Okay, so I think if we bring these thrust multipliers down a little bit, like half them, right? But make that base thrust almost double. And then the thrust dampening, in fact we could make it more than double, and then bring the thrust dampening right up. And maybe just a little more dampening when you slide. So what happens is when you let go of both engines, the ship essentially slows right down without losing boost. In fact, it keeps its boost, and it's able to sort of spin in place. So it feels a little bit like a slide, but it's actually a little more than that. I might reduce the collision penalty a little bit. I'm just tweaking a lot of stuff here. And maybe increase that a little bit. And so let me just check how we accumulate that overdrive thrust. Trying to remember where we do it. So it'll be here from integrate forces, propel, that's right. Okay, where's propel? Ah, no, that's not right. Thrust for, that's right. Okay. Let's go to thrust for. So this is sort of where we calculate how much thrust each engine has, depending on like different like overdrive values and things. So like an engine that's off is always just going to return 0. Otherwise we've got a base thrust, double thrust. Okay, so yeah. So I think maybe even like so that level 1 thrust can maybe remain at a 1. So that essentially gives you like at least some form of boost when you come out of a corner, as long as you've got the at least level 1 overdrive. Okay, so that's gonna perhaps make it a little easier to control. Let's see how that feels. Okay, so I've definitely got more of a thrust coming off. Okay, and I'm turning a bit too much. Like, way too much. Okay, so that linear dampening definitely got us some of the way, but because we've increased the engine thrust, it's actually turning us more as well, so we're going to need more steer dampening, I think. So I'm going to pump that up and see how that feels. Okay, so quicker off the mark. Okay. Alright, so that's actually not feeling too bad. Okay, and I think the other thing I wanted to do is I want to make the player a little less bouncy, because yeah, some of that bounce just affects the player a bit too much, and so that's actually part of our physics material. So if we grab, is it our physics material? Yeah. Grab our bounce here, and I think we actually want 0 friction. So we're going to get less rotational sort of kickback when we bang into things, I believe. And then if we bring the bounce down to even half of what it was, we'll see how that feels. One other thing I noticed is, well, before we test this, I think this is an obvious change. Our sound effects. Wait, let's bring in our audio manager. So I think that collision sound between the environment is just a little too high pitched. Negative 0.2. That's meant to be 0.25. Okay, so that's like a little lower. It's not going to be quite as intense for the player, because it was a bit sharp, I think, when everything was happening. And we have this collisions. So when you collide with the environment, we take a strength and we mediate it between 50 and 0, but I'm actually going to mediate it between 100 and 0. And so that's going to essentially make it. I mean, like if you're going really, really fast, then that collision sound will sound the same, but it should be like quite a bit softer, I think. And there'll be more dynamic range by upping that value. So it's just sort of a dull boom. Okay, so right now we're doing kind of a cheap version of our collision sound. So we're not actually getting. Oh, hello there. I have no idea what you're talking about, DeFolis. I'm a cat. Meow. See? I really am. I've got whiskers and everything. Okay, so that collision sound, it's not great. What we're doing is we're actually just passing the linear velocity of the player when they collide because we're cheap. But I believe what we can do instead, let's jump into the player code. So the player has this handler down the bottom somewhere. Like on something? Or am I not doing that anymore? On hit. On body entered, that's the one. Okay, so on body edited, right, we say like, okay, if we're hit by a player, then don't know what, we don't need this anymore. So here we're just grabbing the velocity length. But what we really want to do is get the collision info. Godot collision get collider, I guess. Get I'm trying to remember how to get the vector from body entered. Get colliding bodies. So I did this before with a kinematic body 2D, and you can get the collision info, but I guess what you could do is get the velocity of I think that's fine for now. I'm not really that worried about it. However, I think that it was maybe a bit too